This is near the Jewish exile settlement Tel Abib. Tel Abib means mound of the deluge. It's Tel Abubi in Babylonian. Now, Ezekiel sees an intense vision. Four heavenly creatures, or angelic beings, with something resembling human shape and form. Each angelic being has four wings and four faces. The four faces, well, the man is on the front, the lion is on the right, the ox is on the left, and the eagle is in the rear. These angelic creatures are cherubim, the guardians of God's throne. Their wings are full of eyes. This is symbolic of the all-seeing nature of God. Besides each of the cherubim is a wheel within a wheel. Both wheels have eyes around their rims. Four wheels, four faces. This is symbolic of the mobility, intelligence, and strength of God. Four wheels, four faces, omnidirectional mobility. Now, God comes in his divine chariot, sitting on his throne. He comes from the northern sky. Stormy wind, fire, clouds of smoke accompany the Lord's appearance. And the firmament separates as he approaches Ezekiel. Now, for those of you who don't know, the firmament is a dividing line between the heavenly sea and the earth. This is related to ancient cosmology. The throne, the divine chariot, approaching from the north, is a literary figure drawn from Canaanite mythology. Their gods lived in the north. The Lord is enthroned above his creations. He sits above the cherubim, just like on the Ark of the Covenant. This is in Exodus chapter 37, verse 9. The divine wheels within wheels. These vehicles rise up to the firmament. Ezekiel hears a voice and sees the divine chariot and heavenly throne, and what appears to be a man upon it. The man is suffused, enclosed in radiance. There is a fire burning in his eyes, and the brightness hurts Ezekiel. He's blinded by this. Ezekiel realizes that it is the glory of the Lord, and falls upon his face as he hears the voice of God speak to him. The words of God address Ezekiel as Ben Adim, the Son of Man. Ezekiel is the only prophet that God does not address by name. This emphasizes the distance between God and humanity. Son of Man is symbolic of the prophet's finite dependence and insignificance before the infinite power of God. God essentially commissions Ezekiel as his prophet. This commissioning resembles the calls issued to other prophets like Isaiah and Jeremiah. The Lord gives Ezekiel a divine scroll and tells Ezekiel to swallow it. Ezekiel swallows the scroll without hesitation. The eating of the scroll gives Ezekiel power and authority, and now he will speak only what God has written. The scroll tastes as sweet as honey and is bitter as almonds. It is sweet because it is the word of God, and it is bitter because the papyrus is filled with woe. Ezekiel will now develop into the fiercest warrior yet against idolatry. His extraordinary vision will give rise over the centuries to endless mystical and theological speculation. Now, this divine chariot is known as the Merkabah in Hebrew, and it's an endlessly fascinating image. This visitation by God places heavy stress on Ezekiel. It nearly kills him, and he now must perform a series of symbolic acts. First off, he must remain silent for 7 days. He must construct a model siege machine from sun-dried brick and place a relief drawing of Jerusalem under the siege machine. This mechanism features an iron plate or griddle This is symbolic of the coming fall of Jerusalem, or should I say the fall of Jerusalem. Ezekiel is to be tied up on the iron griddle of the siege machine. He's to lie first on his left side for 390 days. This is symbolic under the lunar calendar of a year of iniquity of the northern kingdom Israel. He must then turn around, lie on his right side for 40 days. Each day is symbolic of a year of iniquity in Judah. So, for 61 weeks, Ezekiel must eat nothing but sparse siege rations, unclean food, bread baked on dung made from mixed grains. Dried cow dung was a common fuel in the Near East. This eating of unclean food, of mixed grains, is symbolic of the scarcity of food and drink during the war siege. He must also drink only very, very small quantities of water. Next, he has to cut his hair, symbolic of the fate awaiting the people of Jerusalem. Ezekiel uses a sword like a razor and cuts off clumps of his hair, and must then weigh them on a scale and divide them into 3 parts. Each third of his shorn hair is symbolic of different aspects of the doom/catastrophe approaching Jerusalem and Judah: pestilence, sword, and wild beasts. Now, using a sword to cut his hair conveys the idea of the approaching military defeat. God's punishment will be cruel and unyielding, and he himself will mete it out. This is almost unimaginable pain and destruction. Famine so severe that fathers will eat sons, sons will eat fathers, mothers will eat daughters, and daughters will eat mothers. Cannibalism is going to be involved here. The survivors, if any, will be in miserable moral, spiritual, physical condition and will flee to the exiled community in Babylon. A series of awesome curses are hurled at Judah by God through Ezekiel. Idolatry is the prime, overriding, and all-embracing sin. The Lord is a jealous God, and the king and his people must be punished. Ezekiel, like Hosea, uses the metaphor of whoredom, chasing after strange pagan gods and idols, as a type of adultery, persistent infidelities. This almost obsessive stress on idolatry is emphasized and intensified by another extraordinary and explicit vision. God seizes the prophet by a lock of his hair and transports him through the air from Babylon to the temple in Jerusalem. Ezekiel will now see with his own eyes that in each room of the temple, each layer of the temple, each court, each segment of the temple, a different idolatrous practice is taking place. There are many abominations within the temple at Jerusalem. As they travel, Ezekiel sees mountain imagery, high places, open air, pagan sanctuaries, cultic equipment, incense stands, fertility poles, statues, idols of fertility goddesses like Asherah, Anath, Ayana. This is linked directly to temple prostitution. They are traveling north and arrive from to the palace complex into the temple precincts. They go to the gateway of the inner court of the temple. This is the third gate. The walls portray all sorts of loathsome, creeping things, all kinds of animals. These wall paintings recall those of the Egyptian Book of the Dead. There's worship of Osiris going on at the temple of Yahweh. They get to the second gate. Images of the Sumerio-Akkadian vegetation god Tammuz. There's idols. These images feature his descent into the underworld during the annual decline of vegetation. They get to the inner court. There's images of vine sprouts that are phallic in nature, more fertility gods. This is a direct reference to the Egyptian sun god who brings forth all vegetation and life. More idols, more fertility gods. Now, during the course of his visionary tour of the temple, angelic beings in the form of warriors are summoned by God. They are angels of death. And will soon slay everyone. Ezekiel tries to plead for the people with prayer, but he is rebuffed by God. God instructs an angelic scribe to get coals from the fire in the inner sanctum, the Holy of Holies. This fire is between the cherubim within the temple sanctuary, and scatter the ashes all over the city. This is symbolic of what's to come. Now, at the east gate, the main procession gate, God in his throne chariot that gleams like beryl pauses for a moment. Then, with a look of deep sadness in his eyes, forsakes his sanctuary because it has been desecrated by pagan rites, pagan idols, and pagan worship. God departs and flies to the mountain on the east of the city. The mountain now radiates with the glory of God. Ezekiel is then transported back to Babylon and reveals everything he has seen to his fellow Jewish exiles. The people do not believe him. And Ezekiel continues receiving divine messages till at least 571 BC. Possibly as late as 565 BC. Now, nothing is mentioned in the Bible concerning the circumstances of Ezekiel's death, but later Jewish tradition says that he was murdered by one of the leaders of the exiles, whose idolatry he had denounced, and Ezekiel is buried somewhere near Babylon. Now, Ezekiel is a man of intelligence and learning. He's highly self-controlled. He follows without demur God's directives to him, but does venture a protest once in a while and appeals what is communicated to him by God. The book of Ezekiel is a series of individual units arranged in considerations of their chronology and context.